scientist, where it kind of makes it the feminine form of the word. A lot of people are confused about the name, so just to clarify, that's where Scientista comes from. And it's primarily an organization that serves to empower and advance the careers of young women in STEM. So we are very similar in our mission to organizations like AWIS or SWE, where we are really trying to increase the critical mass of young women that enter and stay in STEM fields. But our target demographic is really young women. So we started as an intercollegiate organization. Our target demographic for the foundation is primarily undergraduate and graduate students in STEM. So we have a number of different initiatives with the foundation to try to empower and advance the careers of the young women that we work with. An overview of them are these three sectors. So what we like to call community, content, and conferences. So the foundation started in 2011 by two sisters, the Tartaglia sisters, who are both undergraduate biology majors at Harvard University. And they entered the Harvard Tech Prize competition with this idea to start an online community for intercollegiate women in STEM. They won the Harvard Tech Prize, and they started our online periodical for young women in STEM, which the Scientista Foundation has grown out of. So our original first initiative was content. So we created a blog where editorial directors and bloggers wrote articles for young women in STEM about issues they may be facing. So things you might encounter in STEM fields as you progress through your undergraduate or your graduate work, obstacles and strategies for how to deal with them, as well as just fun and interesting stories that might be interesting to read for young women in general. So it wasn't all science and it wasn't all serious. There was also fashion articles. There was articles about hobbies and things that people might be interested in outside of the lab and outside of their classes, just to create this community. So from there grew out the Scientista community, which has grown to include right now 30 campus chapters. So at our height several years ago, in terms of the number of chapters we had 40 chapters. Some of those are in a period of turnover. As people graduate, they have to find new people that in the university are underclassmen and have to take over the chapters. So about 10 of them are in a transition period right now. So we have 30 active campus chapters throughout the country, and those range everywhere from the West Coast to the South to the Northeast. We also have 2 chapters in Canada. And the campus chapters are really the workhorse of the foundation. So we have, as a national organization, a lot of resources for our campus communities in terms of professional development, skill workshops, connections with organizations to bring in speakers, connections with corporate organizations, as well as other nonprofits where they can do networking events. And it's basically up to the chapter directors to recruit a community on campus of young women in STEM at the institution, hold weekly meetings, assess what the interests are of their chapter members, and then the national organization and the leadership really helps them achieve those goals of what their chapter members are looking to get out of their chapter. And then every year we invest a lot of resources into holding our annual conference. So as Fanuel said, it's our annual Scientista Symposium. It's a 3-day conference. I think I have some overview here. Yeah, it's a 3-day conference that usually runs Friday to Sunday. It starts on Friday with our Scientista Career Fair. Every single year, we have more and more organizations who are joining our career fair, which is amazing. And the goal is really to have attendees network both professionally and personally with organizations that may be of interest to them to partner with or to maybe work at professionally currently or in the future. So last year we had 60 organizations join us. So we have top organizations like Calico, Thermo, Microsoft, Google, companies that people are interested in getting jobs at. We also have a number of nonprofits. So it's not just about big corporations, but we have organizations like the Union of Concerned Scientists. We had the New England Aquarium. We have other women in science organizations attend like AWIS. So we also want the career fair to be not just about professional networking for a job or a position, but also about these collaborations between organizations, about people looking for mentors or colleagues working in the same areas as them so they can share, tips and advice on what they're doing. And also for organizations to get the word out about the types of initiatives they have. So we have a lot of small organizations also who attend the career fair to advertise the types of programs they have, whether it be small fellowships, internship programs, volunteer positions, things that people might be interested in doing. And then on Saturday, we have our big poster session. So undergraduates and graduate students are welcome to submit abstracts in advance of the event to present their work. And then the winners are chosen by a judging panel of postdocs and faculty in their area of research, and the winners actually win small cash scholarships, somewhere between I think it's $500 for third place, and this year it went up to $1,500 for first place. So it's actually a great opportunity to both work on presenting your research and possibly win a cash prize, which is great. And then the rest of the day is spent doing some workshops in professional development skill areas, as well as some technical workshops we have occasionally. So this year we had one on Python, coding introduction. And then on Sunday, we also have our pitch competition, which is a fairly new endeavor of ours. So it was grown out of the finding that the percentage of women in startup culture and the tech community is really quite low. And women entrepreneurs and startup founders are quite rare. So we wanted to encourage more women to be, bold and brave enough to venture into the startup entrepreneurship realm from their STEM careers, especially if they have ideas to do so or to start a company. So we started our pitch competition where we bring in individuals from venture capital companies to sit on our judging panel. And we have both a novice round and an experienced round where individuals at the symposium can sign up to pitch their startup idea. And the winners for the experienced round get $5,000, which is fantastic. And the novice round gets $500. So the novice is basically if you have an idea, but you haven't really pitched it anywhere else before, this was your first time pitching it. Experienced is people who have an idea that's kind of more fully formed and have started pitching it to venture capital companies. So just an overview of the types of people that usually attend our symposium. This is a little bit outdated data as it's from our 2018 symposium, but we usually have a split between 50% undergrads, somewhere around 35% graduate students, be it master's students or PhD students, and then somewhere around 13% postdocs. So postdocs or early career professionals in industry areas. And we do have a large number of attendees coming from the life science disciplines, around 30%, and then we have a split of attendees coming from computational areas, engineering, physical sciences, or social sciences and the humanities as well. So it's a very diverse group. This year in 2019, we had 35% underrepresented minorities, 17% attendees who identify as LGBTQ individuals. We have about 99% women who attend the event. We do have a number of men who attend, but the vast majority of attendees are women or identify as women. This is something that we are working on every year, trying to reach out more to individuals in underrepresented groups to attend the event. And we also have a travel grant program for individuals from low-income backgrounds to receive travel money and free registration to the event. And then we're also always focusing on bringing in more diverse speakers and presenters for our different programs and workshops that we have as part of the event. And then here's just a snapshot of all the organizations that were involved in 2018's career fair. This year in 2019, we had slightly more than this, but it's a great mix of academic institutions, corporate organizations, nonprofits, kind of fun places and more serious workplaces. So it's really great because for attendees that are looking to attend the event, there's something for everybody. Everyone can find someone to mentor them or to talk to them about an idea they have, or a potential position that they might be interested in or might be qualified for. It's really a fantastic event. This year we had over 600 people who attended. So with that, I will turn it over to you guys. I am happy to take any questions you have about the organization. I am the symposium director, so I'm in charge of organizing the symposium every year, but we also have a number of other people that work in the organization on different initiatives, and we have a board of directors as well. So I'm happy to also connect you with them or answer any questions I can about stuff that they work on.
Cool. Thank you so much. I like that brevity, and that way we can get into discussion even faster. So I want to just go back to the beginning a little bit. And you're broken up in the community, content, and conferences, right? That's how Scientista is structured. Actually, if you can go back to the slide. So how do they work together? How do they communicate? You know, the community, I guess the community is like the chapters that you're creating. The content is, I'm assuming, the online website. What is the synergy between the three elements?
Absolutely. So our network of Scientista members are not just our chapter members. So we also have people who can just join the foundation who are not on a campus that has a chapter, or maybe they're at an industry company or with an organization that's not an academic institution. They can get involved in the foundation through our conferences and our online content. All Scientista members get access to our online content. But our community members, which are our chapter members, they are often the ones that are generating content for our online network. So individuals who are in our chapters can interact with our non-chapter members through our online content and through the conference community. And then people who find us through the internet, through our content, can then go back and either join a chapter that they on a nearby campus, or they can actually start their own chapter at their institution, pulling from the national resources and the online chapter to kind of bring that to their home campus and to individuals that might be, you know, in their community.
And what happens to these chapters, and what are they doing?
So they're working on the campuses that they're located on. So they are building a community of women in STEM, either in undergraduate programs or graduate programs at that institution. They have regular meetings, so they act as a supportive community to keep women in these fields, because a lot of times it can be very isolating in these programs because they're very male dominated. This acts as a little bit of a outlet for them to have a supportive community. And then the national leadership also gives them a lot of resources in terms of connecting them with networking opportunities. So we connect them with corporate organizations that might be interested in interacting with them for recruiting purposes. They can bring them in for networking events on campus for their chapters or for the academic institution as a whole. We also connect them with a number of speakers that are interested in speaking to the chapters on campus about different professional development workshops. And then also if they need help in terms of getting funding, or they need help accessing administrative resources at the institution, the leadership, the national leadership also helps them with that.
I see. So I want to bring in Ramesh Longani from Duane University. So he's in a coffee shop right now, so he can ask a question. So he's asking, and I was also thinking this too, how do you get so many partner sponsor groups? Like, what does that take to do that?
Sorry, I missed the question. How do we get so many what?
Partners and sponsor groups.
Yeah.
Like, how do you do that?
It's a labor of love. I like to say. Scientista Foundation, view of our financial structure, we are a nonprofit organization and we are completely volunteer run. So everyone who works at the foundation, save our director, director positions, who are really funded, is a volunteer. So all of the funding that we need for our conferences to help assist with our chapters on campuses, to run our online content community, is funded by sponsorships. So we do a lot of communication with sponsorship and recruiting teams at big organizations. We have built up over the years quite an extensive database of contacts at a number of these different organizations, and we keep in touch with them regularly. So we have people on the team who are just in charge of maintaining our sponsorship relationships, or cultivating new relationships with organizations. And that's what helps us maintain our financial stability so that we can put on all of these events.
Yeah. So what do you typically, how do you approach them? Because imagine a lot of organizations or initiatives people are starting, they're wondering, how can I work with other, funding agencies that can support me, right? So Ramesh is asking, so he asked this question because there are a lot of organizations working toward women in STEM initiatives. So how do you separate yourself among the various initiatives? And this is, I think, Jackie, you know this well, there are a lot of STEM in women, like women in STEM initiatives, right? How is Scientista different compared to the others?
Absolutely. We get that question all the time. And it's very important that organizations, when they're asking for funding, are readily able to give organizations a quick answer as to what's about them. So we are specifically targeting intercollegiate students. So we target undergraduate and graduate level women predominantly. And organizations that are our partners or connected to us, like AWIS and SWE, they have more of a professional network. So they do have campus chapters for students. They do have regional chapters for people who have just graduated. But most of their work is focused on cultivating professional networks and helping pull younger people into those professional networks and then assisting them with their careers past that stage. So we like to think of ourselves as preparing future members of organizations like AWIS and SWE, because we work with a younger population of people. And that's also why we work very synergistically with these organizations, because we can have them at our conference each year. So AWIS is a big partner of ours, because we are providing slightly different resources for them. So it creates this continuity among our members where they start with us and they build up a lot of confidence working with us and in these supportive communities. And then organizations like AWIS are a very logical extension for them once they actually move into their career and are worried about, advancing and salary negotiation and that sort of thing. So that is how we distinguish ourselves when we partner with organizations. So when we're asking organizations to help us sponsor different initiatives, we really lead with the fact that we are preparing the future women of the STEM field while they're still in their undergraduate or graduate programs. And we always lead with all of the successful things that we've done. So if you look through the evaluations from our past conferences, if you read through testimonials of our Scientista members and our chapters, it's quite evident that being part of this organization as a young woman in STEM is quite transformative and is helpful for keeping young women in STEM field in the era of this leaky pipeline that people like to talk about. So we always lead with that in terms of requesting sponsorships from a new organization, and we really try to show them all of the successful things that we've done and also how it can benefit their organization. So a lot of these organizations want to hear explicitly what this partnership is going to do for them and how it's going to benefit them. So some of the ways that partnering with an organization like us is useful for corporations is that they tap into a very talented, diverse pool of young women in STEM who are great people for them to recruit for positions. So a lot of organizations these days are trying to diversify their talent pool and trying to diversify their workforce. So working with us is a great win for them because they tap into a large pool of women who are highly qualified for these positions, who have a number of diverse experiences, and who they know are interested in STEM positions, like the ones at their company. Other ways are ways that we can boost their philanthropic initiatives. So some organizations are looking to increase the amount of money that they give philanthropically to different organizations. So we also try to distinguish ourselves as an organization that's financially very stable. All of the sponsorship funds go directly towards funding the initiatives. And a lot of organizations do respect that, I think.
Okay. Yeah. So, oh, and I think Ramesh, how do you get your graduate work done? Yeah. So I want to ask that question a little later. But to just follow up on this, getting these, like you show them like what's the benefit, what's in it for them, right? To tap into your network. I'm just thinking about another organization, SACNAS, for example. Like, how do you differentiate if you compare yourself to SACNAS? What is the differentiating factor? Of course, they accept more more men, I guess, present there. But apart from that, do any of the funding agencies ever compare you to them and say, so what's the difference? And
They do, in the
mhm.
sense that we often are trying to achieve the same things, which is to
Right.
workforce and diversify the STEM community.
Mm-hmm.
But we do have different types of programs and resources available. So for instance, SACNAS doesn't have such small communities and chapter communities the way that we do. So they do have campus chapters,
Right.
but it is a much larger network where people interact more on the national level. And our organization is very intimate, where our small campus chapters really do get a lot of interaction with our national leadership board and communicate regularly with chapter co-directors. So it facilitates these strong interpersonal relationships, which is a benefit of our organization. But at the same time, we have some limitations in that we can't do as much, and we don't have as much of a widespread reach as organizations as SACNAS, because we don't have the infrastructure and the large organizational structure to reach other people. So we have slightly different structures and slightly different programs and initiatives that we are launching and that we host. So I think when applying to funding agencies, we just try to differentiate ourselves in that respect. And recently we did get some feedback from a grant submission in that they respected the fact that we are a small organization that really puts a lot of effort into the number of members that we have. So we put a lot of resources into each person. So we only have about 2,000 members, but each one is very highly valued within the organization. So it's a little different from a much larger national organization.
Are members paying a membership fee?
So previously we had a system where members would pay chapter dues if they were part of a chapter, but Scientista members who are not part of a chapter did not pay dues. Because of the expansion of the number of programs that we have now, we are starting to implement a nominal chapter fee, a nominal membership fee, which is $10 for the year. And we will be rolling that out with our new website and our new job posting board in September.
Cool. Okay. So I want to squeeze this question in from Ramesh. So you're doing a lot. How do you get your work done amidst all of this?
Yeah, that's a question I get all the time, Ramesh. And it's a great question, because one of the most valuable pieces of advice I got when I started as a graduate student here at Cold Spring Harbor from one of the faculty members was that all of this work is great and you are doing a really great thing, but you always need to be a scientist first. If you want to be a scientist and pursue a career in STEM, you really need to develop your scientific skills, critical reasoning. Your research needs to be where you want it to be. And I've kind of held that with me all of these years. So I have been blessed with the skills that I am very good at time management. I'm very good at delineating out chunks of time where I work on a specific task and I'm able to focus on that task and then move on to something else. I also am very organized about my email inbox. So I filter out lots of emails into different folders. So if something has to do with my outreach, if something has to do with my thesis research, it goes into a folder, and then I have designated times that I go through each of those folders and address each of those things so that I'm not kind of scatterbrained at any given moment and working on multiple things at the same time and not giving it the attention that it deserves. I luckily have always been kind of adequate or good at this. Other people have taken some more time to develop these skills, but I do think that they are things that you can develop with practice. If you're really good about keeping a calendar, keeping everything organized, delineating out very defined time chunks of when you're going to work on each thing so that you can really focus on that one thing when you're working on it. All of that is really important. I do think it comes with practice.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think time management is a huge thing, right? Especially if you're starting any initiative. As I'm talking to more and more founders, that's a huge skill to have. And you're right, you can totally develop it, right? Yeah. And I like your idea of getting an email, because my inbox is just full of stuff, you know, and I get it, research, ideas, and I'm thinking about it all the time, all of it at the same time, which I guess is not efficient. I think breaking it down into moving it to the right folder, and then, as you said, designating a time, right, to think about that problem and say, okay, I'm only next 10 minutes, I'm only going to think about this. I think that's a great idea. And I might steal that.
One thing that I want undergraduates and graduate students to know is that being in STEM degree programs is often very emotionally taxing. So I find that having something outside of my research to focus on sometimes is really nice. And it makes me not take the emotional toll of, you know, an experiment not going well or not working, or an exam not going well, as much to heart as it would otherwise, because I have other things that are going well and are successful, and things are, you know, the things that I'm doing seem to be productive and helping people. So I feel that it is helpful when you're in these programs to have something to focus on outside of them as well, just some of the time, because it helps not get as down in the dumps as you tend to in these programs.
Right. And I think you're probably heading to, as you said, research is important, and you're going to do a postdoc right after you're done. And you want to become a faculty member, is that correct? Or like, what's your trajectory right now?
That's what I think I want to do.
Okay.
But if I'm completely honest, when I started my PhD program, I did not want to do a postdoc, and I did not want to stay in academia. I started my PhD program completely set on going into science policy. I was very clear with my PhD mentor and my thesis committee that I wanted to do the very famous AAAS Science and Technology Policy Fellowship when I was done. And I was very committed to outreach and advocacy. And even though science was important to me, I wanted a non-academic career. And then as I went through my PhD and I started to learn how to ask my own questions and what sorts of questions specifically I was interested in, I realized that I actually have a very deep passion for science, and I have very specific scientific questions that I'm very curious about. So when it came time for me to start to think about the next steps, I realized that maybe I want to give science a little bit more of a shot. So I figured that I would go on and do a postdoc, which everyone on my thesis committee was incredibly surprised when I told them that. But obviously everyone was very happy with that. Cold Spring Harbor is a good place because they are very supportive of all of the PhD students that want to go into academic or non-academic careers. So it was helpful in that sense. So I am going to do a postdoc. I'm really excited about it. In California, I'm really excited about what I'm going to work on. It would be great, I think, to be a faculty member and continue working on these questions, but I'm not counting anything out. So we'll see. I'm kind of taking it as it comes.
Yeah, I think that's the way to do it. I did the whole postdoc thing, and ultimately, I think once you get up there and the years go by, then you can decide, you know, am I still asking the same types of questions? Well, where can I go and to get answers, right? Yeah. I think you should certainly, you and others, definitely think about those questions that keep coming in your head, that you're asking yourself, that you are interested in investigating further. And I think that's, for me, that's been the driving force, as I'm saying, okay, I need to, these are the types of questions I'm interested in. Where can I go and address them and develop them further?
Totally.
On that note. So quick plug in there for Ramesh. So Ramesh has an initiative called 1,000 STEM Women. You may have heard this project.
Yeah.
90-second spiel. So he's inviting you to submit one, particularly about your research. So the link is there, and for others who are listening on later, you can visit the 1,000 STEM Women wixsite.com there. So Jackie, I want to get a little bit into the numbers you were stating earlier. So it sounds like roughly of the attendees, 20% present posters, right? Like from the 2018 numbers, 113 out of the 567 that attended, they're presenting posters. And is that a number that for you, like the research component of this, how important is that? Is this something you want to grow? Do you want to see the number be higher? Just walk us through a little bit in terms of what do you guys want to see in these numbers and what's your main focus?
Yeah, so I think a big question that we have been asking ourselves also in recent years is what sorts of careers are we trying to empower and advance young women into?
Yeah.
Do we want to focus on non-academic career tracks? Do we want to focus on academic career tracks?
Right.
When the organization was started, it really was born out of interest in pursuing academic career tracks and this idea of the leaky pipeline that a lot of women pursue non-academic careers by choice or by force, be it what it may. So in recent years, we have expanded a lot of our programming on non-academic tracks. So a lot of the symposium programming is actually focused on non-academic career tracks. So we have panel discussions from representatives from a number of different organizations that come in and talk about careers in industry, careers in government work, nonprofit work, careers in startups and entrepreneurship. We do try to maintain some focus as well on careers in academia. It does seem like a lot of organizations these days are putting so much emphasis on non-academic career tracks that there seems to be a little bit of a gap in terms of guidance for those who are interested in staying in academia, in terms of like how to look for a postdoc, how to apply for a fellowship, how to apply for faculty jobs and negotiate for those sorts of resources that you get with the startup package. So we do want to also maintain some resources and programming for those who are interested in remaining in academia, which is why the poster session is really a strong part of the symposium. So this year we actually had slightly more presentations. We had about 220 poster presentations, I believe. So we are growing the number of people that present, and we find that not only are presenters able to present their work, network with people, potentially win an award for their presentation, but it also gives them kind of a more active role in the symposium because they are engaging in the programming themselves. They are talking to people and meeting people through their presentations. So it keeps them actively engaged in the programming instead of just walking from workshop to workshop, kind of not meeting or talking to anyone and just sitting and listening passively. But this actually brings them out into the forefront and puts them on the stage so that they can talk about themselves and their work. So we do like the poster presentations. We also have discussed having non-research poster presentations. So people who are working on other outreach initiatives, diversity initiatives, people who are working on maybe education programs, teaching young students. So we'd love to have them actively engaged in presenting their work as well, even though maybe it's not scientific research that they're doing.
Yeah, I think I'm glad to hear you say that, because I think there's a wide array of people that are working on different problems. And research, I think, to me, is very broad in the sense that you can ask very different types of questions, right? At the cellular level, that's one type. Even at the meta level, where you can ask, how whether it's education focused or how are networks developing, right? And real networking, for example. I think there's value in each of these. So I'm glad to hear you that you guys will be open to those in the future. And so sounds like the poster part which is the research, right? Really, really important. What kind of people do you get? Do you get the undergrads, for example? Large chunks of them are undergrads. Are they seniors, juniors?
So
who are they?
poster presenters are split between undergrads and graduate students.
Yeah.
Usually about an even split, and they tend to be later on in the program.
Okay.
For undergrads, they're usually seniors because those are the ones who have had time to work in a lab or to shadow someone and have a small research project that they can present.
Yeah.
And then for graduate students, it also seems to be those that are later on in the program because they have kind of accumulated enough of the story to talk about it. but also because they're interested in getting some feedback on the project before they submit a paper perhaps, or they're looking for a postdoc or some position after they leave their graduate program. So they're using it as a networking opportunity in that way as well. So it does tend to be people later on in their programs.
Yeah, and for me, I'm really passionate about increasing access. So you guys, as I'm seeing more and more high schoolers that are now also doing research. So in our own program here at Harvard, we have high schoolers now that do this. I'm really impressed that they come into college with research experience, right? I'm like, what was I doing when I was in high school? Not doing research. And so it's interesting that I think you probably see this eventually, that you get more even freshmen that are interested in presenting, right? And I'm glad to hear that you're finding more and more URM, giving them access and opportunities to present. Because I think it's a huge deal, right? If they get present, that gets them a wealth of experience. And I believe you have judges as well. They get judged, right?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
They are judged by postdocs and faculty members.
Yeah, that just gives them that experience, because science essentially is being judged. You're submitting papers, they're being judged, right? Conference talks, they're always being judged. So that they get to see that and experience that.
Yeah.
So the research component, I think, is really, it sounds like your guys are focusing on this little space, right, that you found, that the non-academic focus is there from a lot of other organizations. Is that what you're defining yourselves as, or is it, of course you're covering everything, but is it a specific focus for academia now that you have? Or
in fields, we try not to limit ourselves.
Okay.
Also because at the undergraduate level, a lot of people haven't decided what track they want to go into yet. Maybe some of them are interested in staying in postgraduate studies and they're going to apply to a graduate program, but then who knows where they're going to end up after that.
Okay.
So we are still trying to keep it open, but try to provide ample resources in both realms, just so not to dissuade anyone. And we also have a number of academic institutions that come to our career fairs specifically to advertise their graduate programs for undergrads who are interested in pursuing a master's or a PhD or something.
I see. I think that's fantastic. Let me ask you as well in terms of the pitch competition. I think is a great idea. That probably came from your feedback from attendees, right?
Yeah.
I figured that, and because that's something that if you're thinking about, I'm sure you guys use this when you're talking to your funders and sponsors. I don't know if Cyclist does that actually. It's a very unique part. I attended it. It was very fascinating.
Yeah, we're still trying to get out the kinks and recruit more people to participate, but it's definitely it's a promising part of the symposium. Definitely something we're going to keep in the future.
Yeah, and especially you have funding for it too, right? So you're probably getting a lot of interest.
So it's helpful in that we've created kind of a niche for soliciting support from venture capital companies. They weren't in our traditional kind of pool of people who were partnering with us before, but through creation of the pitch competition and partnering with them to be involved in the judging panel, it benefits them to get involved because they also get first crack at a lot of these really cool ideas that these young women are presenting that maybe they wouldn't be hearing coming into their, traditional seed rounds sort of thing.
Yeah. I think you have a cool model. What would be kind of awesome? Like I'm sure you would have a slide somewhere. Just thinking about all your sponsors and, you have the conference, some sort of chart to showcase the arrows, like what's going in and who are the key players, right? That would be really cool to see. Yeah, like a breakdown of that. I think that would be fascinating to get people oriented a little bit as to how you structure it. Because the way I'm visioning you guys, like a pyramid, because the community content conference, it sounds like the conference is really the foundation a little bit, right? Everything is built around the conference, right? Whether you're having chapters on the side, the website is there too, but the content probably coming from the conference, right? That's another
biggest event for sure.
Yeah, it's exactly, and that's hopefully the goal for you is to grow that continuously, right? And find more people.
And one of the biggest things about what sets our conference apart from a lot of other organizations is that we try really hard to keep it accessible. So what you were saying about accessibility for young people, we really try to keep the cost low. So many conferences are in the hundreds of dollars to attend. Ours is $70 if you get the early bird price. That includes the 3 days of programming, participation in all of the competitions, food for the entire weekend. And then we are trying to grow our travel grant program every single year through our sponsor connections to bring more and more attendees in for free. So cover their registration completely, and actually pay them for flights and lodging to make sure that they are fully able to attend without any sorts of financial obligations. That's really a huge focus for us, because not only is that going to increase the accessibility for younger people, but also for underrepresented minority groups from small institutions that don't have a lot of research funding or travel funding, and also low socioeconomic areas, people that might not be exposed to research or to STEM fields in their communities that can actually come for free and tap into this community. That's very important.
Right, and we were talking earlier before we started, like where you also host the conference matters too, right? Boston is great, accessible, but there are other locations, of course, right, that have, you can be targeted, right? Populations that are in specific places of the country. Curious, are you guys interested in like the international arena at all? Like, do you have people from abroad that are coming, or are you interested in that population at all?
We don't have any individuals, I'm going to say, that come from abroad to attend. And that has been traditionally because of financial constraints and because of visa issues.
Right.
So it's definitely something that we would love to increase in the future, but may not be within our physical constraints because we are such a small organization. It might not be feasible.
Yeah, but it's a growing organization. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Small. I think, from mine, as I'm just putting all the pieces together, and hopefully people who listen to this in the future can see that, like you essentially are putting all the elements there. You have a sustainable business model, even as a nonprofit, which you are, right? You're a nonprofit.
Sure.
You can totally have a business model that is sustainable over the long term, right? That you can fund people, pay people. So you said everyone's a volunteer right now?
Everyone except our executive director is volunteer.
Okay. Because that's another thing too, where how do you make it sustainable? And they're full-time, I'm assuming, the executive directors?
Yes.
Okay. So that's another thing too, because when you start paying people, then their expenses, and it gets, things rack up pretty quickly. And that I can tell you from experience too. Things add up very, 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 very quickly. So let me ask you this question. In terms of impact, right? You can look at your stats for your surveys and you can say, okay, these number of people did so-and-so, attended this. What are other measures that I think will tell you that what you're doing is somehow having an impact, right? Not enough time has gone by to see, maybe for the undergrads, you can see how many of them that have come to your conference. Like, can you isolate like the impact of your conference, that it helped them get into graduate school, onto postdoc, into faculty? Is that something you're interested in measuring, and how do you plan to do that?
It's a really important point. How do you measure the impact you're having, which is really the prime way to tell whether you're doing the right thing or not. Are you putting resources in the right areas and creating the right programs, or should you be focusing on something else? And it's, to be honest, something that we've only started thinking about because we've gotten now to this stage where we are eligible for things like NIH and NSF funding because we are large enough that we're impacting a large enough group of people that we qualify for these things, and we have the infrastructure to execute these sorts of larger projects. And one of the main requirements that they have is that you have very solid evaluation of your reach and your impact and whether the things you're doing are successful. So previously, we really relied on surveys from our attendees, from our speakers, from our partner organizations to get their feedback. But now we're actually trying to quantify that a little bit more. So for instance, this past symposium, we are tracking all of the attendee hires by all of our partner organizations. So we actually have numbers of how many Scientistas were hired by the different organizations that came to our career fair, which is amazing because we can see numbers in the 10s and 20s of individuals who got full-time positions at the organizations we had at the fair. And if they hadn't connected with them at this symposium, it's likely they wouldn't have ended up in these positions, right?
That's fantastic. That's just want to say that's awesome that you're tracking that.
Yeah, it's great. And it's a little bit hard, to be honest, to get this data out of big organizations because they
Right.
don't necessarily have all the pieces in the same place to be able to tell you, we met this person here, we got their resume from you guys, and we hired them after all of the interviewing. But most of the organizations are working with us to get all this information back to us, and that's been great. We also are keeping track of attendees who were in our pitch competition. So individuals specifically in our novice round who pitched their idea for the first time are now also going to let us know when they repitch that idea at bigger pitch competitions, or they win awards for their startup idea or something, or they actually go ahead and get seed funding. They are also going to transmit that information back to us so we can keep track of people who started with us and where they are now. And then the last thing is to track general attendees over a kind of more longitudinal amount of time. So we used to just do post-event surveys where we would get acute feedback from people right after the event. But now we have the system in place to track people over time and see where they end up. And then also get some anecdotal feedback from them about, I joined this PhD program. I met that person at the career fair and ended up applying to their program. Or I am pursuing a postdoc in this research area because it was a suggestion from one of the judges at the poster competition or something like that. So keeping track of people in the long term is going to be important, I think, because a lot of the impact and effect of the programs that we have in place are more on a longer time scale than just directly after the event.
Yeah, and the time scale is important, right? I think as long as these granting agencies are aware of this, and I'm glad to hear that you guys are now eligible for these things. A lot of funding out there.
Yep.
You know, there's so much funding, hard to get, some of it inaccessible, but I think if you are doing the right thing and hey, push through, you'll get them eventually. Question for you also, like what is maybe one or two mistakes that you guys have made that you've learned the most from as an organization?
I can tell you one from this year, for instance. We had a speaker who spoke in one of our keynote lectures at this year's symposium who was very unpopular with our attendees because her workshop that she was giving is normally given to a mixed group of women and men. And it focuses a lot on how you present yourself in a professional setting, where to a networking event, how you interact with people. And giving that workshop to a room full of only women, the message is very different than giving that workshop to a group of men and women mixed. And it came off a bit condescending and patronizing to our attendees, and we heard that feedback loud and clear. And that's something that we weren't considering in the past, is how are the resources and professional development skills that previously were popular or helpful for people, how is that different in the current era? And how are people utilizing those skills or not utilizing those skills at the current time? And is it appropriate for the demographic of people that we currently have at the event? So feedback is amazing, and that's why we rely so heavily on our surveys, because we want to give attendees exactly what they are coming to the symposium to get. So for instance, that was one of the things that afterwards we were like, okay, we shouldn't have done that. And next year we're not going to do it again. But most of our limitations as a foundation really stem from our size. As you said, we're a growing organization. A lot of the things that are done by people at night and on weekends when they're not in the lab, when they're on their computers at 5 a.m. They're using the time in bits and pieces that they have outside of their day jobs. So we just don't have the capacity to do a lot of the things that we want to do because we don't have the woman power to do it. So we do want to keep growing the organization and keep growing the leadership team and the volunteers that we have, so that the programs that we do have, we can make them better with feedback, and that the new programs we want to start, we have the infrastructure and the team effort to be able to get those done.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I think these lessons, right? What can you learn? What mistakes have you made that you can learn the most from? Those are, we don't talk enough about them because, you know, things just look magical and they're working beautifully, but
but that's never the case.
No, people have done a lot of work and failed many, many times to get it right. And so that's, I think, really, really important that we talk about that. The other question that I had, just thinking about your, like, moving forward, like, well, what's the next biggest thing for you guys now as you thinking about the next 5, 10
We
years?
want to expand the number of chapters that we have.
Mm-hmm.
As we bring on more people on the leadership team, we have more oversight and we can handle more campus chapters. So we want to have more chapters start up. And we do have interest from a lot of people who have gotten involved with our symposium who want to now go back and start chapters at their institutions. But we also want to expand that so it's not exclusively academic institutions, but also corporate organizations. For instance, we have a lot of postdocs and a lot of industry professionals that are involved in the symposium who are now interested in going back to their companies and actually starting a small group at their companies for the women in STEM that work at the company, like some of the larger ones like Microsoft or Google, which maybe it's easier to get lost in a sea of a lot of employees at these organizations. It would be just as beneficial to have something like a Scientista chapter at these organizations as it would be at a large university. So we also want to kind of rethink and restructure our chapter network so that it can be accommodating for lots of different scenarios and communities and isn't just exclusive to academic institutions.
Yeah.
Another one is to start a national mentorship program. So we have smaller mentorship networks through our campus chapters because it's a little bit more manageable with a smaller group of people. But we do want to open that up to our general foundation membership and have a national mentorship program where we can actually match people individually with mentors that are within the foundation but are maybe more advanced in their careers who can assist the younger people with different issues they might be facing or advice they need. So that's also something that we're putting together the structure for.
I see. You may be familiar with the National Research Mentoring Network. At the NRMN. Oh yeah, you should check it out because they basically are doing close to what you just described right now. NRMN, the National Research Mentoring Network. And they have a platform and they do the matching, for example. Of course, their tool is different to yours, but could be the main difference. But check out this structure because I think you could probably learn some, some cool.
Partner with them and
that's what I was thinking. I'm a big believer in partnerships.
Yeah.
And so I think connecting with them to figure out, because you don't have to always start something from scratch, right? You absolutely do not. And if someone else has failed and somewhere else, you can avoid those pitfalls and just work with them or they can teach you something, right? Here's something that we're not doing that you could do.
Yeah, for sure.
That is there.
Small organization, it doesn't make sense to expend resources recreating something that's already out there and successful. It might just be more synergistic to team up with them.
Yeah. And for the people who are going to be watching this later, essentially, you guys are always looking for partners, right? And creative ideas in terms of how can you advance, the chapters locally. And by the way, you said there were 99% female, right? That attended.
Yes.
Can men apply to this to present? Are they allowed?
Yes, everyone is welcome to attend the symposium. Because we market ourselves as an organization that focuses on advancing and empowering women, we don't get a lot of interest from men. But men should know, or non-binary people should know, that they are completely welcome to join and participate in the event. We do regularly have men that attend the event, or trans people that attend the event. And they are completely welcomed into the foundation as much as anyone else.
Yeah, I was a speaker at the event, but I was one of the few guys that was there. But I think that's great to hear, and I think that's the other 50% of the population, right, that are out there. And I think the word partners, right? Men can be partners in this endeavor that you guys have. So Jackie, it's been fantastic, and I definitely want to respect your time. Are there any parting words that you would like to share? We could keep talking for another hour. I have so many other things, but I think we can probably have you back in the future. You know,
Yeah.
as Scientista continues to grow, I have no doubt about it. We'll definitely have you back here. But any parting words that you want to share that we
Yes.
haven't heard about?
I will include a shameless plug that we are hiring bloggers for credit qualifying internships. So if your institution, your academic institution allows credit for unpaid internships, we do have blogger positions available for our online Scientista network. We also have positions available on our organizing team for the 2020 symposium, which I said was going to be back in Boston next year. And we are also looking for a new executive director to take over for 2020. Unfortunately, Brandy, our beloved executive director right now, is going to have to step down next year. So we are recruiting a new executive director as well. So if you are interested in any of those positions, or you're interested in partnering with us at any level, feel free to just drop me a question. My email is jackie@scientistafoundation.org.
Fantastic. And Jackie, I'll plug in for you. If you can send me the links to these things that are out there, we'll be happy to post them. We have the SciComm board, which will post these things, and we're trying to get them out to our community so that people are aware. And I'm glad to hear you're looking for people, bloggers, and hopefully you will get some responses. So we'll connect offline as well. But that's great to hear. You guys are, again, growing,
Yes.
as I said. So fantastic. And that concludes our chat with Jackie for today, for now. This recording will be posted on our site. And again, thank you so much to Jackie for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks. Have a good day, guys.
All right, bye.